Ambition in the house.
Hello.
Hey guys, welcome back to Ambition. It's the two nutters. I'm joking.
Yeah, I
It's
feel like the
Tiffany and
temperature
Alex.
has finally gone up in the UK, and it's just
Yeah,
brought out a bit more crazy, hasn't it?
definitely. But I think it's expected with Ambition. We've got to, you got to bring some personality and some sass to this, right?
And you're bringing it in bucket loads.
Oh my God, yeah. I do try to be normal, but that train is what way well gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back, guys. So it's Tiffany and
And Alex, hello.
hello. So this week we've got to get into the nitty gritty of this one. Want to
Yeah,
talk about
just the two of
permission.
us.
Yeah, just two of us this week actually. Yeah, no guests. But we thought we'll come back and have a quick chat with you all.
Yeah, so talking about permission, I think I talked over the top of you there, Tiffany. So I'm just saying it again for the benefit of our listeners' ears. Yeah, so we decided today we talk about giving yourself permission, and I think that covers a load of different areas. I think we talk a lot about ambition and how we navigate motherhood and being able to achieve what we want to do. But I think a lot of that does come down to permitting ourselves to do it and stopping being our own worst critic. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Back in my writing days when I didn't have children, I had time to actually sit at the computer and write. I wrote an article on a platform called Medium, and the title is No One is Coming. You are the person you have been waiting for.
Oh,
And
nice.
that for me is just reflects this topic. The idea of just give yourself the permission. No one's coming to save you from anything. And it's quite scary, but I think it's also very empowering to know that you just have to give yourself permission and you better get started.
Hmm. I think it's quite freeing, isn't it? Because I think there's so much about, I guess, like deciding to start a podcast. You have that thing holding you back, which is your inner critic that's like, what do you know about doing a podcast? Why would people listen to you? All of that kind of thing.
Well, the
That
kids will
maybe we
listen.
still think
I
of
always
it.
say the kids will listen.
Or maybe you're scared people will listen. Like, that's a scary thought as well. That you're putting something out into the world and people might listen to it. Oh my God. So yeah, I think if you listen to that inner voice, you'd be like, okay, it's fine. No, I won't do a podcast. But actually, if you permit yourself to have that ambition, have that dream, and then figure out how you're going to go about doing it, you have to give yourself the permission to try. And I think also for me, this is a really big one, the permission to do it and fail at it as well.
Yes, it's true. I think permission, it's just this, like I said, it's this internal voice. It's this internal kind of like something that holds you back, and this internal critic, almost like I think you said that, an inner critic. We all have this inner critic, and it's consistently telling you that you're not good enough, or why should you do this. And it's very important to start to almost talk back to that,
Hmm.
because we're talking about doing a podcast because for us that's our kind of greatest thing right now, of the permission element. But
Hmm.
for other people listening, it could be permission to, it could be anything. Start a business, a permission to move to a different country, a permission to start something new, permission, it could be anything. But at the very root of it is this idea of um really learning to speak back to that critic
Hmm.
and get started. And I think we all need that. We all need to work through that, however that needs to look like for each single one of us. For me personally, I think a lot of it's self-doubt and imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
um Simply because I grew up in an environment of a very traditional Nigerian, you're a girl and you do certain things, you have to be super smart. And when I was young, I was considered to be very intelligent. So I always had that burden of needing to impress my parents and, do what was expected of me, and, have a good education. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as it got older, I've almost kind of wanted to be perfect. And I
Mm.
think I always was a bit scared to try anything in case it wasn't perfect. But it's now allowing myself to let go of my almost like my parents' expectations and starting to respect my own belief in myself, my own expectations of myself. But you know, if you start anything, you're never going to be good initially, and it's about
Mhm.
allowing yourself to maybe not be good at the beginning and get better.
Yeah,
But it's
definitely.
yeah, but for me, it's definitely that imposter syndrome of, ugh,
And
am I?
I think hearing you there, you're talking about like the permission to live your own dreams rather than someone else's. Like we don't have to follow the expectations of other people, and we don't have to fit into, I guess, the little boxes that people expect you to fit into in life. Like there's no one right way to be a mother. There's no one right way to go through your career. Um, you just need the permission to try and follow your dream rather than be following somebody else's or doing what you think you're supposed to.
Yeah, it's really hard. I do think that I will say that I think it's really
Mm,
hard, but I think it's practice. It's starting somewhere. It's taking small steps, and then you look back on your life and think, "Oh wow!" Like for me, again, I'll give you an example. So I was supposed to study psychology at university.
mhm,
I was like, I want to study psychology. I got a place at Royal Holloway University, and at the very last minute, I told my dad, and my dad convinced me to change my mind. He simply said to me, you know, psychology doesn't have as much weight as law, and I ended up changing my like degree course because of that conversation with my dad. But I really wanted to do psychology, so I ended up going through clearance, ended up going
mhm.
to University of Essex to do law. But why didn't I just push back on him and say, no, I really want to do psychology, like I really love
Yeah,
it. So again, I always remember that, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm super adamant about, you know, listen to my own voice, because I know this is my life. I know my dad wants the best for me, but he's not me, and it's very important for me to for me now to really engage with myself in a way that's very authentic, because I'm
yeah.
not going to live I'm not living for my dad, I'm living for myself. So yeah, I think that's something I always look back on and does inspire me now to be very authentic with my own thoughts and my own desires.
Yeah, and I think, I can totally imagine how much you'd have enjoyed psychology.
I would have loved it. I
Yeah,
would have loved psychology. So yeah, that's always something that's it's just this little thing at the back of my head, even till today. It's madness.
and what about for your kids? Because that kind of makes me think as well. Like that's something I want to avoid for Ted, because I don't want him to do what he thinks I want him to do. You can be successful at literally anything. That's what always amazes me. People who decide to, I don't know, even be like an acrobat or a circus performer or something like that. They picked what they wanted to do and they got really good at it. Do you know what I
I've
mean?
got one kid. I might end up being a clown, but no, it's true. But I think you're like that, Alex. Talk about that a bit more, because I think you're quite um sort of, yeah, you're quite good at giving your son that space, right?
Oh,
Because he's
well,
super smart, isn't he?
he is very clever, but also I'm trying to give him permission to fail a bit at things at the minute. And maybe it's the crazy 3-year-old in him. He is obsessed with winning at everything. Any games you play, going up the stairs, getting undressed to get in the bath. He's like, I did it first. And you're like, I'm not getting undressed. Like, of course you did it first. And I've said to him, not everything's a race. So that's a hard one to combat. And then sometimes if he's playing a little game and he gets something wrong, he then like pulls back and doesn't want to do the next one. One of the ways I'm combating this is being really bad at Duolingo. So
Mhm.
I'm doing my own Duolingo, which I do every day. Learned some really helpful Italian phrases like "I tue cricchetti puzzano," which means your hamsters stink, which,
Right.
incredibly useful. Might test that out with the Italian family who are staying this weekend. But when I get stuff wrong, I'm saying to him, "Oh, that's fine." Like
Yeah.
he'll say to me, "You got it wrong," and I'm like, "Yeah, I can't get everything
Thank you,
right.
Judge.
Fine." Like,
Yeah.
um, but I don't want him to get into his head that he's got to live his life for me, because I
Yeah.
think that's a really hard thing to not, to move away from. I think most people struggle with that. That
Mm.
of course I want him to do well, but I want him to do well for himself. And getting that message across is quite a tricky one. It's a message I wish I'd listened to myself, I wish I had maybe, thinking about it, gone down a more creative career. I love doing creative stuff. And, you know, at 40, I may have left it too late to become an artist, although apparently it's never too late to do anything. If you look at the 58-year-old woman competing in the Olympics at table tennis.
Mhm.
But I wish I'd followed my own path that little bit more. And yeah, it's a tricky one because I
Yeah.
think it's hard not to put our expectations onto our kids, but I'm hyper conscious of trying not to do that.
No, but you're right. I think a lot of it, it's that voice. We all have a voice. And I remember I was listening to, is it Alex or Mosey, and as this entrepreneur guy, and he was saying that everyone has that voice. It could be your uncle, could be your dad, could be your mom. And I think we all have that voice and we carry it on throughout our lives. That voice that's always like, like expecting you to be perfect. That voice that just is that critic, or and you become that voice over time, even when your parents not there. And I think
Yeah,
that's what it is. So it's great that you're super conscious about how what voice your son will have over time. And I'm like that as well. I think because of how I grew up, I obviously want, great. I have great, you know, I don't know, great hope and dreams for my children. I want them to do well, but a big part of me is that it needs to be authentic to them. So I'm always
yeah,
watching them. I'm always challenging. Like I can never imagine telling my kids not to do a certain degree study. But for my dad at that time, because of how we grew up, and he's kind of like traditional way of, if your kids don't do law or they're a doctor, then they're nothing. That's how
mhm,
they were grew up. And sadly, he didn't work on that or change that. But it's down to me now. So that's why I
yeah,
watch my children. Like if they say I want to study this, I would say, oh, that's great. And why is that? I'd rather go through like like a reasoning understanding than saying no, don't do that.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's coming from a place of understanding and helping them to enjoy their passions and what they like. And I think that's really important because again, our voice becomes that voice for them over time. So what
yeah,
voice are you? I suppose the question is, what voice are you creating in your children?
yeah, yeah,
That will,
definitely.
yeah, that will either become the permission or not the permission over time.
And I think it's the permission as well to, again, say no to stuff that you don't enjoy. So, what you just sort of reminded me there, I went through years and years and years of piano lessons. I hated it. I wouldn't practice. I did exams, which I was incredibly nervous about doing. I used to shake when I was doing them. I hated it. And I think I could probably play you Twinkle Twinkle Little Star now, or maybe a couple of scales. My parents must have spent, no, I'm not kidding, thousands of pounds over the years on my piano lessons.
Wow.
And they should have just let me stop. But whenever I said I wanted to stop, they kind of guilted me into, oh, you'll regret it if you can't play an instrument. Um,
I'm sure you're regretting it now.
I mean, I feel like, so I'm not a terrible singer, Tiffany. You will be exposed to this when we go out and do karaoke.
I look back to it.
I like to think I've got quite the good voice on me. But listen to your kids, and they should have just sent me to like singing lessons or something instead that I
Mm,
would have enjoyed and
wow.
stood more chance of actually being good at. So
Mm,
for me, trying to bring that back to my life now and be like, I've tried that. I've really given it a good try, but I don't like it.
mm,
And it's okay to then move on from something. You can try new things and you don't have to love them all. And like you said before, you can also try them and be terrible at them. But the only way you get good at anything is by trying them and sort of keeping going with them. Now, you may decide you don't want to, and that's fine. I think that's a valid decision as well. But again, making it based on what you actually want out of life. Don't do piano lessons just because you think that you should be doing piano lessons for. I'm not kidding, Tiffany. I literally did piano lessons for
wow.
about 8 years.
That's good. Imagine all that money, what they could have done with it.
Yeah,
Like you
they
said.
should have just put it in, I don't know, invested it. Nice
Wow.
little nest egg for me.
It goes to show though, isn't it? This whole like, our parents just want the best for us, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's not a conscious best for us. It's like this kind of automatic, or if our daughter could play the piano, that would be amazing. Kind of maybe our friends and family will be so proud and they'll look at her and everyone will think she's amazing. And it's sad how that can take parents down this rabbit hole of like just the wrong things for their children. But
Standing over me while I cried because I didn't want to
oh
do
my
my
god,
practice.
yeah, no, it's I mean, it's I suppose, yeah, it's just, yeah, no, I'm very much about just, I mean, I suppose it's a balance though. We won't go off off topic about obviously permission, but I think there's a balance of high standards and
Mhm.
obviously um doing things right. So high standards and also allowing your kids to learn things. But I think it's just striking that balance.
Yeah, I think
Um
8 years is
it's probably long enough.
do like half of that time, fair enough. 8 years, I mean, it's still at the long end of making somebody do something they hate.
Yeah, I remember actually. We'll touch on this briefly as well. I remember when we spoke to Emma Beddington from the
Mhm.
Guardian, and she's doing an article about mothers with ambition, and I remember she said, "Is you okay?" Did she say something like, "Are we okay with being with saying that with her saying that we're really ambitious?" As if that was some.
With like calling us ambitious. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
well, I thought that was an interesting one. So I suppose is there for women this fear of being seen as being bossy or being seen as super ambitious in a maybe if you're in an environment where people are not like that, is it
mhm.
quite scary as well to give yourself the permission to do big things simply because people might say, who does she think she is? So I wonder
Yeah.
if that's another thing that we struggle with.
I think you're right about that. I think it's interesting that neither of us considered calling ourselves ambitious was a bad thing, but I do
No, I
think that
think
it
it's a
is.
great thing.
Yeah, I do think it's something that people shy away from. I think they imagine like Hillary Clinton and like, do you know what I mean? They
Mm.
imagine somebody powerful like that who I I think probably is one person's like powerful woman and is another one's like bossy
Nightmare.
nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Is it Drake who said, dreams so big you feel uncomfortable telling small-minded people about it? I always say that. I always say I have some sort of ambitions that sometimes even I'm like, who are you to have these ambitions? But I own it.
Yeah.
Oh, I have such ambitions in my life. Even with children, I'm like, oh my God, the things I want, it's not normal. But I'm okay with that. I don't care anymore. So I don't know if it's just time. And again, I think it's the small things you build up that confidence, I think, to be yourself. And I think it's this confidence of one area that goes into different areas. So for me, I quit my job, I don't know, 10 years ago, I think it's been now. I quit my job 10 years ago, even at the time when I didn't really know what I was doing. And I said I was going to start up a business, and I went traveling for 3 months and I set up a business. When I did, I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm
Mhm.
glad I went traveling, which was number one, something that was not normal for me. And number two, I set up a business. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was such a great journey of the self-reliance, being uncomfortable, trying something new. And I think I've over the years stacked up of on things that I've been a bit out of character, but actually it's
Mhm.
allowed me to learn to give myself permission. And I think that's the way you build up that permission for yourself. And now if someone says to me, look, Tiffany, do you want to go into the Olympics? I actually will say yes, I'll try it. And that's not because I know what I'm doing or because I'm super confident.
You and
I think
Ted
it's
can
because
join go into the
exactly
Olympics
I want
together.
no, exactly. I think I'm just likely to say yes because I feel like I'll try, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But and I'm okay with that. So I think it's
Mhm.
just time of and examples of allowing yourself to do that, sort of to become that person.
And push yourself. I think that's, you giving yourself the permission to try new things, to kind of really dream big, to push yourself forward and not. I think it's just really crucial to not be the one that's holding yourself back.
But
Um,
oftentimes we are, sadly.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so Ted thinks he's as good a gymnast as Simone Biles. I mean, he is only 3, but yeah,
Yes. I say yes. Yes, honey,
he
yes.
saw it on TV, competing, doing, she's so amazing. He watched her compete and he said, I used to do that. Like, when?
Yeah.
Firstly, you're only 3. Secondly, oh, you mean when you were roly polying about the living room? That's you doing
Mm.
gymnastics. Okay. So you and Ted can give it a go. I'm sure he'd be up for it.
Absolutely. And that's it, childlike confidence, right? Children teach us that. I
Ooh, I
think
like
we
it.
yeah, childlike confidence. I think we grow up and we do sadly kind of over time because it's just it grinds on us, this idea of no, this idea of don't do that. Oh my God, what are you doing? And it's something even I watch with my daughter. My daughter's very much a sort of climbing, oh dear, more than my son. My daughter will climb anything. She would go to the top of a slide and not have any fear in her face, which worries me slightly. But I don't know where this child has come from. This child has no fear. This child has no like understanding of something might be dangerous. So
Yeah.
in a weird way, I'm kind of conscious of how I'm raising her. Like when she climbs things safely, I say, "Oh, go ahead and climb it. You're great at climbing, darling." And I
Hmm.
think it's important. It's just that it starts now.
Yeah.
It starts now, and one day she can give herself the permission to do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just the subtle things, isn't it? But kids definitely they give us that confidence. So if we could be more confident like children, well, we'd all do great things with our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think, really the permission thing, it's really just getting out of your own way, isn't it? And like we definitely are the ones holding ourselves back. And I think we've boxed ourselves into, oh, that's something I can do and that's something I can't. And I think that it's permission to kind of tear up the rule book and try things that you don't think.
Mm,
You I think I always thinking about people who go to private school. They don't have that. I mean, I'm generalizing a bit here, but
so I
they
understand what
have
you
that
mean.
innate confidence where they never think, oh, that's not for me. That's not for people like me.
Mhm.
They just do it. And I think that's what we need. We need to ignore the fact that we've been told and put in boxes by society, etc. The only way to kind of to achieve what you want. And I think about this with a real bit of inspiration actually from Bridget Phillipson. This is the second time I've mentioned name dropped her.
Oh dear.
She went to a normal comprehensive school and she's sort of secretary for state of the Department of Education. Bungled her title there, but you get the gist. And like if you look at Angela Rayner as well, the deputy prime minister,
Mhm.
do you know much about her story, Tiffany?
No, not in full detail.
It is incredible. She had a baby at 16 and left school with no qualifications.
Mm.
And she worked in care. Then she became like a union rep. And then she got involved in politics. It's absolutely incredible, the journey that she's gone on. And there must have been a lot of people telling her she couldn't do that. So telling yourself that you can, giving yourself the permission to do it is really powerful.
Mm.
She must have some really rock solid confidence and good people around her to enable her to do that.
Yes, you're right. I think there's always things we can learn from other people, and whether you think you can, whether you think you cannot, it's down to you. So for any mothers listening to this, whatever you might be trying to give yourself permission to do, I think um to wrap it up, we'll give you some tips in terms of what we think works. I think number one, like we said, it's definitely start small, like start learning to take small risk or start saying yes to small things because I really think you build it up. Just like I was saying about when I started business or when I went backpacking or the things I could write a whole list of the things I've done over the years I was not qualified for, but I just had this belief that I was going to do it. And it just started with me doing it and then building up. And now I'm at the point where I'll say yes to most things if I like the idea of it. So there's that building things up. And secondly, it's just this idea of addressing your inner critic. I've always think that's quite a key thing. Thinking about who is your inner critic and bringing it to the light. And actually say, okay, yes, so okay, my uncle thinks I'm not going to amount to anything, but hey, uncle, speak to the uncle. I don't know, like obviously I'm not a psychologist, but there are things that you can do to work on that inner critic. And number three, just remind yourself. I always think our children have front seats to our life and our life story. So I always think even that's motivation as a mother now.
It's really motivational. I love it.
It's true. I was thinking about it the other day. Like my kids have a front seat to like my life, and it's quite scary, but also quite a powerful thing. Like I have the power to write this story. Like they will look back in 20 years. I mean, for example, we go off point slightly. Sometimes how I look at myself in the mirror when I'm doing my makeup. If I'm looking at myself a bit critically, my daughter's watching that because just this morning I was putting on my perfume, and after I finished, she took my perfume and she was copying what I'd done. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's watching me. So they're watching us, and we have the power to change how that unfolds.
Mm,
So with that power, with that consciousness, what are we going to do with it? And for me, that's really important. So hence why, again, I'm coming back to, look, Tiffany, follow your dreams, be ambitious, use the time well, because they're watching you. And in years to come, they will decide whether they can do something because you did it or you didn't. And it's just, yeah, that's very
I
important
love
for
it.
me.
That's a really powerful one. I think I've just got one, and it's one that I've picked up very recently. I did some training
Hmm.
where the person doing the training, she's called Lauren Curry. She basically said about mentally surround yourself with those people that you have in your life that like hype you up or um, will always sort of cheer you on, kind of be a cheerleader. You're one of them for me, Tiffany.
Oh,
So,
that's
you know,
great.
um, but thinking about some other people as well. So we've got some people who are like unwaveringly positive and wonderful about the podcast. So
Mm.
Carolyn, hello, if you're listening to us while you're
Hello.
walking to work, because that's when she listens. She is one, Carolyn, you are one of the most positive and amazing people. She's always so happy for other people's
Yeah.
achievements. She
Mm.
is a force of nature, a
Mhm.
tiny little force of nature. But she really is one of those people that just hype you up, and everybody has those people in their life. And recently we've met a few who've been on the podcast. So Maxine Waneri, she has
Mm.
been amazing. She has been so
Very
supportive to us from the
supportive.
start.
It's true.
So I think mentally thinking about those people who believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself,
Mhm.
and frankly, give yourself a little bit of a kick up the backside. Think what they would say to you. Think what
Mm.
Carolyn Brown would say to you and do it.
Yes, we will need a Carolyn. I love that. Find a Carolyn or create one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Create
Yeah.
one.
That's my top tip.
Love that. Love that. Well, guys, it's been amazing. We could go on, because I think this is such an important topic, but I think we've said enough to inspire you all.
Let's hope so. Enjoy a lovely sunny weekend, I hope, Tiffany.
Yes, I will. And you too. What are you up to, by the way?
I have family descending on me tomorrow night who are staying
Sending.
from Italy. Last time they came, it rained solidly for 2 whole weeks. So I'm hoping that the weather's going to be a bit better this time.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so for them as well. Well, thank you guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Okay, thanks, guys. Bye.